Hi, everyone. My name is Roberta Turok Glenn Barade. I spoke yesterday with our AOK team about our community-based monitoring network. And now I'm here to moderate a conversation between Lee Kayotuk and Richard Glenn. Lee is originally from Utqiaġvik, but now lives in Kaktovik, and my dad, he lived up in Utqiaġvik for many years. And I just want to say, too, that Lee is actually a part of our AOK steering group. He's been involved with AOK for longer than I have. And so there's a connection there to be made, too. And also, this is my first time being on stage with my dad, so this is kind of a new experience. I'm a little bit nervous. I have questions to ask, and I think those will be mostly prompts to get these two talking to each other. I would like to let Lee introduce himself first, and then Richard.
Yes, my name is Lee Kayotuk, originally from Canada. Moved to Alaska in 1995, and ever since I was a little boy, my dad and mom brought me over past the border because my dad's sister lived in Alaska, and I lived a pretty exciting life in this, and I liked it. Lived off the land and going on a 40 below with like snow machines for 6-7 days from our village to go across the border over to Alaska to see my dad's sister, and I really enjoyed it. And it's my first time here at the WhaleFest and here at Sitka, and I just like to thank you for my welcome here to Sitka, and got to do the whaling, got to see some whales, and experience what Sitka weather is like, and I want to thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Lee, Roberta. I saw Roberta's name on the agenda, and it said Roberta TGB, and this is a chat TBG, I guess, instead of chat GPT. My name is Richard Glenn. My new père name is Savik. My mother was born and raised in Utqiaġvik in Barrow. My dad was a dew-line cryptographer, and he worked all along the rim of the radar stations that goes from Greenland all the way through to Cape Lisburn, and including in Greenland, Baffin Island, Arctic Canada. And he met and married my mother there in 1960 when you weren't supposed to fraternize with the natives. And I'm a product of the policy of non-fraternization. And my mother went to high school here at Sheldon Jackson. She's part of the class of 1959. And my wife Vera, who's here in the audience, she went to high school and to college here on and off for parts of her education. So it's a great joy to come back, and I'm sure we'll get to know each other better as this conversation goes on.
Thank you. So I thought that we could start off with the theme of WhaleFest this year, which is shifting boundaries and new horizons. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about what are your experiences with marine mammals on the North Slope for shifting boundaries or new horizons, changing horizons? Are there things that have been changing that you've observed, and can you speak a little bit to that?
Yes, it's Lee Kayotuk for the record again. Ever since I was a little boy, I experienced a lot of changes in our area since I moved to Alaska in '95. The storms and the seas are more dangerous now. Like, we used to camp on the coast and on the beach and stuff like that. Now we're afraid to because the seas are too dangerous. We don't know when the wind's going to come up or the seas is going to get more stronger. So it's pretty scary to, put a pitch a tent on a beach when it's dead calm, and all of a sudden, not even 20 minutes later, you could be in a big storm, which is really scary. But we try to camp in our tents and stuff like that along the coast inside the lagoon where we could set our tents where the ocean is kind of away from the where we are at, and it's a very exciting and scary experience during the same time, because ever since I was a little boy, I've been brought up hunting and traveling along the coast. Ever since then, I realize how different the ocean and the climate has changed. In that area where by the border, there's an icy reef that's called a glacier that comes off the ocean. And when I was little, I remember being at like 3 miles from where we would pass this area of glaciers. And today, now it's probably at least 15 miles in now, and it's very experienced changes that I've seen. And once you go through that ice reef, you could have a cold spell, like going through the ocean. All of a sudden, it gets really cold, and when you get out of the reef and it gets warm again, it's big changes. And the reef that comes out to the ocean, there's a beach. It floods over now. That never used to, but now it floods over to the beach, so connecting warm water to the ocean, which is really interesting to see. And I never seen that before, and that's part of life of how I experienced those days when I was still growing up, and all the animals that are being washed up, or seals or polar bears in that area throughout to our village. And I'm in a small village with 300 people. We're on an island, and we're in Anawar, and we got no roads to our village. And but they want to make a road, but it's pretty hard with the federal government in our area. We have to abide by their laws. We can't just let's go make a road or anything like that. Only in and out is to fly, and we get the fuel barges, the supply barges in the fall time, and but it's still when I experience that is the barges and stuff like that have to travel from Pruta Bay to our area, which is 120 miles in the fall time. But we got no ice, and sometimes the barges and stuff like that get stuck there for a week just because of huge storms, and their barges are all washed up on shore waiting for the weather. And it's really experience of how I lived in that area, and still today is still a learning thing every day. It's everything changes, the scene, the ocean, and all that kind of the ground, and the storms that we get that really slams on our ocean because there's no barriers. But it's a quite experience of where I live anyway. Thank you.
So the question is changes we've seen. So the most obvious change is that sea ice pulls back further and further north every year over the decades. And Craig George, who was a frequent attendee here and a good friend of mine, would say that we're losing a week per decade of sea ice formation and cover. And this goes along with what Lee just mentioned. In the old days, we're talking about, I guess, before like the 1980s, in August, when the late summer storms begin, strong west wind would bring in the ice cover. And then the ice helps calm everything down because there's less fetch. And now, because the ice edge is so much further north at the maximum summer melt season, like almost right now we're beginning to freeze the ocean again. But because the ice has retreated so far in the summer months, there's a lot more open water before you start to see anything in the form of ice. Ice that survives the summer melt. The pack ice, we used to call it, the pack ice is a fraction of what it used to be from the 1970s and going back in time. So that changes everything. But the thing I wanted to stress with this question is that things change more in a day sometimes than this degree of change we're talking about. Things change more in a season, for sure, as we go from full melt to full freeze up of the ocean, solidification of the ice cover and the dynamics. So we're taught to be aware of the environment. We're taught to be aware of, keep these little things, keep a running monitor of conditions in your head. What's the current? What's the wind? What's the storm? How to keep safe? How to keep alive? And so it's almost it's not a distraction, but it's a secondary thing to think about changes over generations. The first thing to think about keeping your crew safe, alive, being successful in your hunt, coming home safe and warm, like everybody wants to do. And so I think it's our job, and I guess I was going to say this at the end, but this is I think one of our jobs is to keep those tools alive, which is the constant monitoring of the conditions, whatever the conditions are, so that we stay safe.
Thank you. I now wanted to ask if you could both speak to your individual journeys to becoming a skilled hunter, a skilled whaler, or a knowledge holder in your communities. If you could share a little bit about that, what you learned, what are some of the lessons that you learned along the way?
It's still a learning thing every day, hunting and fishing and trapping and things like that. I learn it still, and, every day is a new thing. Weather changes, and I still learn the land every day. The weather changes so fast up north where I'm at, and it could be completely white out or it could be nice and calm. But it's just a matter of living in the area that which we're right off the ocean, and we. The storms and everything like that, and the animals that we see that doesn't come in big population like we used to see it a long time ago. Like we get the porcupine caribou from Canada, and we see that every once in a while. But during the summer, it's all the caribou is gone, and we're lucky to get maybe at least 15 in our village to try to survive the summer because of the other animals and predators that are chasing these caribou around, or traffic or air traffic that's heavily in our area that go along the coast, or we have the big Prudhoe Bay area, which is a big oil field area, 120 miles west of our area. It's a big oil field but in our area, there's no. They want to open up for oil, but it's hard. But we have to survive our land and animals that we live off the sea, and the whales and like polar bears. We get a lot of polar bears in our area that stay in our area for 3 months, and we had maybe 100 plus polar bears this year in our village, and it's it's because of the receding of the ice. Our polar bears come in mid-August, and because there's no more ice out there, it's all gone, and they swim maybe 200-300 miles, and they come to our island and sleep for about 2 days before they even could move starting around, go around the village. But we have a polar bear patrol that patrols 24/7 in order to keep the village safe and get our kids to school. And it's quite an experience where we live at. It's a beautiful place, but you have to deal with the climate change and everything that where we're at. Thank you.
Burgess reminded me of one of her sisters when she asked that kind of question. She would begin with, I was born at a very early age. but I always had a fascination of learning about our environment, and I knew that from my mom's two brothers who were whaling captains, the community around me, that I could learn a lot by following, learning, listening from our elders and extended family members. And then I tried to study the same kind of things in school, and it's a cool story, but it's a different story. But this story is about, like, as for a youngster growing up, you have to learn the seasons of the hunt, all of which, toward the end of this lifelong lessons, everything starts to come together. Summertime hunting for seals, hunting for caribou, setting net for fish, learning how to follow marine mammals in the water, how they move, when they move, how they turn, why they alter their course. We went on the cruise yesterday, and it was hard not to try to get that boat to try to follow the whales, because I know when he's going to come up again, that type of attitude. And we did that one summer when we found ourselves among a whole raft of feeding whales in shallow water. And so easy to see where they were, because since it's shallow, you can see every stroke of their flukes and flippers, and it's like following footprints through the snow. And so because we would be hunting the same animals in a few weeks, this was in August, I followed a few of them around, and this is when cell phones were kind of new, and video was not so common. Anyway, one of us in the boat took some pictures, and I showed it to some of our scientist friends. Look at these feeding whales in shallow water. And he said, don't show that movie to anyone. You probably broke a few federal laws while you were harassing those marine mammals. And I just called it practice. I didn't know I was doing anything wrong. But that's the only way as an ignorant kind of person as I was, my eyes were open. When everything is new, you soak it in like a sponge. And I wanted to learn everything and anything I could, even by watching how and when the ocean turns to slush, how the beach freezes, how each wave grabs a little piece of gravel and brings it back, and it freezes into these rock ice conglomerates, and then those things break off and float. Those kind of things, the way a lake freezes, where and when and how a lake or a lagoon freezes before the ocean. Anyway, I got hypnotized by all of that, and so it becomes useful, again, on a scale of a lifetime, both to the science community and to our knowledge of life in an ocean that freezes seasonally. And then for family reasons, I got promoted before I deserved it to kind of a leadership position in the whaling crew, and now I'm in charge. And I didn't know anything except for what I knew about how to watch water and maybe follow animals. I knew like 3 different rules, only 3 rules about how to approach and strike and harvest a whale. And they're pretty simple, but I was ignorant enough to believe that those were the only 3 rules that would keep me safe. And by the grace of God, it worked. But along the way, and through many years in that leadership position, which I retired from, and somebody a little bit older than Berta now is the captain of our family's crew, is now the leader with everything that we instilled in him, everything we got from our grandparents. This thing about learning and how to become knowledgeable in the environment is a motion picture. You're learning from somebody, even they're learning from somebody, and we're teaching someone behind us, and it continues forever. And so these are snapshots, right? Every one of us in life is like that. But in this issue of Arctic awareness, whaling crew, subsistence, traditional knowledge, it's use it or lose it, and it's continuous. Somebody asked me, I think Lisa Bush asked me, or someone else asked me, it's cool we saw Roberta, but don't you wish you were up there? And I said, no, if Roberta's here, I'm good. I don't have to be. In fact, I realized as soon as I sat down here, if Roberta's here and Lee is here, we're solid, man, because this issue of continuous, the conveyor belt of our generations, but also of passing knowledge on. It's an immense, it's happening, and it makes you happy. It must make our elders happy to know that the youngsters are moving forward.
Thank you. So now I wanted to ask if you could share a little bit about what you think is important to understand about marine mammal ecology or body health or population abundance. What are the indicators for you that help you understand animals are healthy? What are you monitoring? What are you looking for? What kinds of things tell you that it's good or bad?
I think, as a whaling, I'm on a crew, but I don't go out, but I go out and help cut the whale, the bowhead whale. We harvest 3 bowheads in our village, and the experience of it is, it's a big 30, 40-foot whale or something like that, like a bowhead, and I experience all the handling of how they're handling the whale, the meat, the blubber and all that, and I find it quite interesting of studying the bowhead, the health of the bowhead, the scars and the white skin on it. They have it like the shipwrecks that hit the bowhead whale sometimes, or the most important thing when you go out there in the ocean, it's a different story. You're in a boat, you're looking for these bowheads, and if you see the bowhead, you could see it for like miles away because it's spraying up this cloud of water, which you could see really good on a kind of a dark day, but on a sunny day, it's sometimes it's pretty hard to see because the water and the sun reflectors off the ocean, but you have to have good eyes to see in order to go out there and as they harvest these bowheads and stuff like that, which I find pretty important, is to make sure how to prepare and hunt for your village, and that's what you're out there for. And we got like maybe 8 or 9 captains out there, go out and harvest these bowheads. They leave like 6 in the morning, but again, you have to watch out for the predators like the polar bear, and they can watch every boat that goes out in the ocean. As soon as they hear a motor on a boat, the bears will stood up and look at every boat that's going by, or when they come back with a whale, they're towing the whale in, and all the bears are running to this area. We just have to, keep the polar bears off the whale as they're butchering the whale. It takes a good couple of days to put away this whale because you have to deal with the polar bears and the weather and things like that in our area in order to put all their whale away and make sure it's clean. That way, the bears come into the village all the time. So we probably got maybe 5 or 6 bears right now, from at least 100 plus in our area that they stay for 3 months in our area, and it's scary if you don't know. Just make sure you look outside and make sure there's no bear out there, because the bear is white as snow. You can't tell really if there's a bear out there. Only way you could know is it's got a black nose and everything like that. You could tell if there's a bear out there, but the Polar Bear Patrol that works really good with our village in order to keep us safe in order to process these bowheads. And plus we get belugas too. We get belugas in the summer, seals that we get too. But these days in our area is different now. We don't see as much animals like we used to because the climate change and the storms we get now are just changing everything in our area, like the ocean and the land, and it's you just have to experience where I live in a way. Thank you.
So the condition of animals, what are indicators of animals' health Butchering it is the easiest way to tell if that something's wrong. Scar tissue, discolored meat, discolored blubber, something wrong inside what you usually accustomed to finding in the organs. Everything from the bowheads to caribou and fish and smaller seals, they use the same kind of tools. And then also, but be careful to make conclusions from something when you really don't know the answer. So here's an example. So one time, it's late summer, so there's almost no ice cover, rotting ice everywhere. These little low-relief ice floes, like flat as these tables here. And we went out in a boat, like an 18-foot skiff, and there were bearded seals on there, the things that we've been hunting all summer, and in these little patches of ice in between a current boundary, sometimes the ice straggles along the boundary. There were these seals, and they're usually pretty cagey. If you show up, they're gone. And so I just motored toward them quietly. And they didn't leave. They didn't want to leave the ice. And the first thing you think of is, are they sick? Are they paralyzed or something wrong? And they waited until they waited until I shot. And I was right there, closer than this first table. And that's just totally unusual for uguruks, for bearded seal. Of course, they were healthy, big, fat layers of blubber and everything perfect about their body type and all that. And come to find out, I think, this is still, I never really told this story in public much before, but we took a few home that day. We could have had 5. We made a silly mistake. If there's a killer whale in the water, he don't want to go down. And his odds were pretty good with my boat that day. And so they took their chances. And here's an issue. So someone would come home and spin a great story about lethargic seals or refusing to, or unable to swim or whatever. This is not. So the issue is keep your eyes open, keep learning, right? Seek to understand. Don't have any preformed conclusions. All of that stuff. One of the things that the theme of this conference is about change, but I'm going to push back on that issue a little bit, which is learn it first. And when you think you've learned it, then after you learn something, then you can learn about the change. But you can't really learn much about the change until you learn the thing, whatever the thing is. And wait a long time in a career, a lifetime, or that's what I think. And then wait that much longer again before you start making conclusions about change, which is great for the people who like to just understand, but it's horrible for the people that want to predict. And I don't mind being unable to help the people that predict or blame and all that other stuff. I'm still trying to understand, and when you lock yourself into that mode, every day is a gift.
Good answer. I think that's a great segue for this. I have a last planned question is, do you have any advice for young researchers or students who are here today who might be interested in pursuing, more marine mammal research or working in these topic areas? Do you have any advice or wisdom, lessons learned to share?
Yeah, I think, as a students or college or students that, go to school to become a scientist or marine mammals or anything like that, that where we live off the ocean is, quite a, you learn everything, you learn a lot every day, and you're still learning that experience. And I find it pretty interesting for young people that, that go and say, what's this? Well, let's ask these people, they know, and because they went to school for a long time and they know what kind of animals live in the ocean, bottom of the ocean, and things like that, or different animals that wash up along the coast, or seals, whales, polar bears, and other things like that. I think it's a learning experience every day, because you have to be out there to experience. Where I live anyway is off the coast, and what kind of animals we see every day, and the weather, and just it's pretty interesting. But you have to deal with all the animals that we survive off the land, and the fish and the whales and the birds and waterfowl and things like that. It's again, the weather is, you can make it there in the same day, but the weather changes every day, and it's, you could have calm waters to 6-7 foot seas, and it's quite an experience. And I think every day is a new experience, a different day, and you'd have to see what you're going to experience as you travel along the coast, or or go out camping. And everybody likes to go out camping and do your fish netting and making dry fish and things like that. The caribou, but it's hopefully the animals are there, but you just have to be out there to experience if they're there or not. Sometimes we go out to go hunt caribou, all we see is polar bears, and maybe they should have been like a 20-30 caribou here, but no, it's all of a sudden we're seeing polar bears, and and it's change of climate because of no ice. And I experienced polar bears hunting caribou, and but they didn't catch any. But I experienced a polar bear trying to hunt caribou, and because they have nothing to eat, and seals, or you'd be lucky to catch some seals on the beach. But I did experience a small seal being caught by a wolverine on a beach. The seal was sleeping, and this wolverine walked up to it and grabbed it by the neck and dragged it up to the beach. But he ate his head and left it. The rest of the body, that's experience I experienced, of different animals eating different animals is quite an experience what I've seen anyway.
Yeah, I have. Those are great anecdotes of life lessons and things that you see that you'll never forget because you see it. It's use it or lose it. I mean, there's nothing in our DNA, or if we just stay at home and sit on the couch every day, we're not going to learn about these tools that we need to pass on to future generations. And then to me, this thing, there's a lot about this two-eyed learning, two worlds of knowledge. And to me, everyone's looking for the truth. And if you find an expert on, let's talk about the comparison between traditional knowledge and Western knowledge. If you find a real open-hearted expert on your other side, let's say, if you're a scientist, you're looking for a local expert, or the other way around, you put the two guys or gals together, and they start talking, let's say they're talking about caribou, a real caribou expert talking to a real caribou expert, the cultural differences disappear, and they're talking about what they're both knowledgeable about. They become colleagues. And so these two circles of knowledge overlap a little bit, and that place in the middle where they overlap is the best place to be, because if you promote learning like that in both directions, everybody benefits. And so that would be my guidance to students, professionals who want to make a career out of this. If you want to study change or study the natural environment, don't silo yourself, and also make sure that, at times we don't have these degree processes or whatever that make the best guy or gal to find for X subject. It's going to take, you got to get to know each other. And the best way to get to know each other is become part of the community. Try not to be a visitor. Lori Quakenbush, who spoke here earlier, she's been around our people and our hunters for decades and achieved the respect and knowledge and friendship, and that information exchange with people like Lori and like the late Craig George, that kind of dedication is what yields true co-production of knowledge, and we're thankful for it. We have, in each of our communities, we have people who are willing to work with visiting researchers, and hopefully this boundary thing can disappear.
Yeah, and I find it pretty exciting for students, like, with Ken Dutton's crew. He comes to our village every summer and trying to get the school involved with different things that's along our lagoon, like, little fishes or anything like that. So the students will go out for a day, half a day or whatever, and try to experience the lagoon, because they'd never heard of, what's this or what's that, and how come this is there? And I said, well, that's part of learning, and what his crew is doing to come into our village and do studies and things like that in the lagoon is pretty interesting for our younger generation, because they're going to be there for us to hopefully study our ocean and more, our land, and whatever they do will things change every day, but I find it very helpful for our younger students to be involved and on our coast. And but we lost our school in 2007. We had a big school there, and it burned down. We had the biggest fire in the world. It was scary, and 60 below and 40-mile-an-hour winds, and the fire truck couldn't put out the school that was burning, because all the hoses and the fire hydrants all froze up. So they had to watch the school burn down. That's it's been there for like 70s and 80s, and but now we have a school that's cat train trailers that we have now, but we have a gym that's being built. Which the one thing that they wanted was a gym, because the students didn't have no gym. Well, we'll just put out a basket outside and play at 30, 40 below, and the ball doesn't bounce very well when it's frozen anyway. But they still play outside and throw baskets and things like that. The weather is doesn't bother them. And the mountains are 35 miles from our village, but it's quite an experience for the younger generation to see how come our school is burning. Well, it burnt all the way down and burned for like maybe 5 days, maybe after that. But it was quite an experience, and scary experience of what we seen. And now the kids are back in school after couple years of roller gone that came to our village. Well, let's start bringing some trailers to our village. It's 120 miles, and it's still today, and they're in the new school yet, but our gym is being built, which I really wanted, and that'll be a good thing for them before the rest of the school gets built. But they wanted the gym for them instead of playing outside with 40 below and bounce like that. But the ball doesn't bounce too well at 40 below and things like that. Thank you.
Now I want to see if there's any questions from the audience.
Hi, I really liked what you said about like expert to expert conversations and how that works. And I guess this is kind of a philosophical question, and I apologize for that. But I am curious how you see like the differences between what we call like Western science and like traditional knowledge. Because for me, I've always seen it as a way where mostly the methods of recording that information and passing that information down are different, but they're both, you know, empirical and based on observation. And I guess I'm just curious what you think about that.
I thought about it a lot. I'll tell you, I got a story that helps illustrate it. And the moral of the story is there's two ways of learning. There's Western education where the teacher assumes you don't know something until you prove to him that you do. And the Inupiaq style of education is built on this observation. Well, I watched my mom and dad do this for whatever, I think I can do it now, that type of attitude. So the Inupiaq education is the mirror image of that, which is they will assume you know something until you demonstrate that you don't. And I felt this personally. So I'm going to take my first overland in the dark winter snow machine trip, Barrow to Utqiaġvik, 60 miles, blowing snow, no sun. A blind person can almost use the ground as a compass because it has a fabric, just like wood has a grain. But in a blizzard, everything's moving, snowdrifts are moving. The fabric of the ground is less easy to figure out because there's blowing, moving snow everywhere, like sand dunes. So there's 3 guys older than me. We're going to go to Utqiaġvik. I barely got my park on, barely got my mittens ready. We're going to meet at the edge of town, and we're just going to take off. And only thing you got to do is cut those snowdrifts at the same angle, and you'll generally, and there's a few other clues along the way will keep you. It's before GPS. In fact, it is the GPS. And so I got there, and my hands are already cold. I just went a few hundred yards from my house. My hands are already cold. And the way to warm your hands in cold temperatures, if you let them get cold, once you warm them up again by yourself, they stay warmer longer. There's physics behind that. I don't know what it is, but I had yet to rewarm my hands. So I get to my elders and they're like, "You ready?" "Yeah, I'm ready," because I have everything I'm supposed to have. Bang, they were gone. I wasn't really ready, but and they're gone in the blizzard so fast that their tail light of their snow machines disappeared and their trail disappeared. And then I just stayed put. And I kept my engine idling so I'd have a little feeble headlight shining in their direction. And after a while, they came back. And finally, my mittens are ready, my gloves are ready. I rewarmed my hands. I'm just about ready to feel bulletproof as far as the wind. And my uncle looks at me and said, "I thought you said you were ready." So he assumed I was ready until I proved to him that I wasn't. And that's kind of the style of Inupiaq education. And as soon as you realize there's 2 different ways of education, then there's a reasons for it built into lifestyle. But when it comes to knowing the truth, knowing a fact, knowing when or how an animal, like when a fish spawns or anything like that, then all of that stuff has already been boiled away. And I don't know if you ever get the chance to sit in a room. The last time I did this and I felt real good about myself was we had talk about ocean currents. And the oceanographers talk about ocean currents. And there's a guy named Steve Okkonen, passed away again, a real great marine scientist. He was based in Fairbanks. He's one of these kind of guys. And anyway, our ideas as land, from people observing the currents from land or traveling through them in a boat, when you feel you hit a current boundary, you can feel something change. It's your boat wanted to go this way and you cross a boundary, you move in a different direction. It throws you off, but sometimes it's easily visible. Anyway, long story short, the Inupiaq version of ocean currents and the satellite-based observers and textbook peoples it was a little bit different. So let's put them together. We put our senior whaling captains together, Nursit, Barrow, Wainwright, and these university experts. And after a while, they distilled down the reason why there's different. There's not one saying A and the other one B necessarily. It's just it gave a more fuller picture, and that's rewarding.
I think that's all we have time for. Thank you so much to our panel.